know, huh?
Here we go once again.
You know how we do it. Let me shoot some.
Let's go.
Located on a little peninsula in Asia with a war-torn history and as one of the poorest Asian countries up until the 1960s, few would expect Korea to become a major influence in this world's society. Today, however, Korea is a truly globalized society, exporting products all over the world and enjoying a high standard of living. Culturally, Korea is being influenced by and exerts influence on global culture, as is evident in the integration of foreign entertainment, food, and cultural features. This is possible because of the globalization of Korea. Globalization is the process by which regional economies, societies, and cultures become integrated through a global network of communication, transportation, and trade.
During World War II, Korea was occupied by Japan. After Japan's defeat, Korea was split into North and South regions, with the North controlled by the Soviet Union and the South controlled by the United States. Following the end of U.S. military rule in 1948 and eventually a rigorous development plan started in 1962, the economy of South Korea grew to be one of the world's wealthiest and most productive, growing from a GDP of $3.8 billion in 1960 to a peak of $1 trillion in 2007. Along with the global trade that has come with economic expansion, South Korea's culture has been influenced by the cultures of other countries, particularly American culture, due to the long-term occupation and the persuasive nature of American culture in the world.
The massive changes that come with globalization can be traced through many factors, but a very interesting aspect that few look at is the music. Music can be a direct indicator of a country's culture, and Korea is no exception. The process of globalization has changed Korean culture as well as its music.
Before globalization, Korea was very conservative in that many topics, such as sexuality, were not discussed in public or present in popular culture. This conservative state can be seen somewhat as a reflection of China, because much of Korea was influenced by Chinese culture prior to Western influence. The traditional music of Korea that existed prior to the beginning of the development of pop around 50 years ago consisted mostly of court music, used in governmental ceremonies, and folk music, which developed into distinctive styles in different regions. Much of Korea's traditional music is instrumental, incorporating string instruments, wind instruments, including flute and oboe, and percussion instruments, such as gongs and drums. When music did contain lyrics, court music typically praised rulers, while folk music spoke of everyday life and even had specific songs to be sung during specific group labor projects, such as rope making. Traditional Korean dance usually consists of a group of performers wearing ornate costumes and dancing in formations, often incorporating theatrical elements that fit with the music. This video is an example of a performance of traditional Korean folk music. The song is entitled Bae Nore, and it is about rowing a boat.
Globalization, however, has influenced Korea internally and externally. Internally, many Koreans, especially the younger generations, are moving away from cultural traditions and are embracing the new culture brought on by globalization. A new age is coming where Korea is being influenced by other countries and adapting a new culture to fit these new ideas. A prominent example of this cultural change is the modern pop music of South Korea. The music shown here is an example of Korean trot music, considered the earliest form of pop. It was introduced to Korea before and during World War II and derives its style from Japanese enka music. It had largely gone out of style but is enjoying a resurgence in popularity as some modern pop groups such as Super Junior are releasing recordings in the trot style.
While traditional Korean music has a few distinct styles, It has remained quite static throughout the years and makes use of traditional instruments. Pop music is very different. It's quite new, so it's constantly changing, while often following the trends of pop music in other countries. Rather than traditional instruments, Korean pop music makes heavy use of synthesizers, audio effects, and other electronically generated sound. Lyrics are often intended to be repetitive and catchy rather than convey much meaning. The appeal of a group is often as much about image as it is about music. Group members are always dressed in flashy clothing and often dress and dance provocatively. Modern Korean pop music, rather than following the traditions of the Korean music before it, deals with topics that may be controversial, such as having multiple partners or acting and dressing in ways which clash with the conservative mindset. An example of a music video which caused much controversy is this one by Hyuna, which is initially rated unsuitable for minors but then edited to remove this designation. All of these aspects mirror those present in American and other global pop music. Korean pop is currently following the American trend of the 1990s with the popularity of many boy bands and girl groups singing bubblegum type pop, which has since gone out of style in the US but remains popular in Korea.
똑바로 해. 넌 정말 bad boy. 사랑보단 호기심뿐.
Korea has incorporated many outside influences into their own culture. Especially in music, this can be blatantly seen or heard, as some songs heavily draw from songs of other countries. There are many blatant copies, especially of music from America. These songs can be just as popular in Korea as they are in the US, which means that Korea is accepting some American culture. This is an important event to document because this transition is quite radical for a country which only began to enter the world stage around 50 years ago. This song, Run Devil Run by Kesha, re-released by Girls' Generation, is an example of American music adapted for the Korean market by Korean artists. Externally, Korea has significant influence over the cultures of other countries. The music that is exported out of Korea is a huge hit in many other Asian countries such as China, Japan, and the Philippines. Many report what they describe as a Korean wave traveling across Asia. This refers to the popularity of all types of Korean commercial pop culture, such as movies, television shows, and music. The influence of this music is so drastic that these other Asian cultures attempt to copy them. Additionally, the influence is so significant that many Korean songs have been translated into other languages to be appreciated by people of other cultures. In conclusion, Korea has become a truly globalized society, and its music is a significant part of this process. Beginning with the cultural influence from China, then from Japan during the occupation, and finally taking much influence from American pop, Korean culture and music has seen many waves of global influence, but maintains a culture that is uniquely Korean, and has recently begun to have its own significant influence on global society.
티会幸福